that you please go back to your handout and join us in singing He Touched Me. Shackled by a heavy burden, beneath the load of guilt and shame, then the hand of Jesus touched me, and now I am no longer the same. He touched me, oh, He touched me, and oh, the joy that floods my soul. Something happened, and now I know He touched me and made me whole. Since I met the blessed Savior, since He cleansed and made me whole, I will never cease to praise Him. I'll shout it while eternity rolls. He touched me, oh, He touched me, and oh, the joy that floods my soul. Something happened, and now I know He touched me and made me whole. Something happened, and now I know He touched me and made me whole. Would please join us singing the Unclouded Day. They tell me of a land far beyond the sky. They tell me of a home far away. Oh, they tell me of a home where no storm clouds rise. Oh, they tell me of an unclouded day. Oh, the land of clouds. have a special treat today. We've got Debbie Talley today. Listen to the words of this song. Okay, we're going to dismiss the kids now to go to the kids' corral. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little
I thought y'all'd like that. Morning. How's everybody this morning? Good, good. I have had the probably as busiest week of this year so far this week. And you know, it's funny that I was so busy. I was like, preparing for this week, I was like, God, I'm so busy this week. How am I going to prepare for a sermon on Sunday? He says, just do it every day. So that's what I did it every day. So I've figured out a secret, okay? I've figured out how to be an overnight success in life, okay? We're going to dive into that today. Everyone basically is always asking two questions. When you wake up every morning, you're asking yourself one of two questions, okay? I haven't arrived yet. How do I get there? Okay? In any aspect of your life, whether it's team roping or just life in general or relationships or anything, I haven't arrived where I want to be yet. How do I get there? Okay? People that ask themselves that question, they've figured out where they want to be. Okay? I know a lot of times in my life I don't have any clue where I want to be. So the second question I was talking about is, why do I exist? Why am I here? Why are we here? What are we here to do? Why are we still on this earth? So we didn't come with a manual. Okay? When we were born, God sent us down and He gave us to our parents, but He just gave us. He didn't give them a manual on how to raise us and how to make us good people and how to get us successful in life. God will just leak it a little bit at a time to us. And once we're out of the house, God doesn't give us a manual on how to get a job, what school we should go to once we graduate. He doesn't give us a manual that says, all right, this is what you do. Okay, you go to kindergarten, then first grade, second grade, third grade, then you get into middle school, and then you go to high school, and then after high school you go to this college, and then after you go get this degree, you go to get this job. He doesn't give us a manual. So we've got to figure out what we're supposed to do. I want to give a little bit of my backstory, okay? I'll do high school, a little segment there. In my senior year of high school, I've joined the fire department there where we lived in River Oaks. And my Sunday school teacher at the time, he was a Fort Worth fireman, and he was also a volunteer fireman there in River Oaks. And he encouraged me. You know, I was kind of a senior, and I was trying to look for a path of what I should do in life. And he says, you know, have you thought about joining the fire department? You know, and I was like, no, I hadn't really given it much thought. He's like, so we talked for probably 3 or 4 months, and he finally convinced me, all right, when you turn 18, come join the River Oaks Fire Department and just try it out. Well, I mean, I was hooked from the first call that we went on. And that was in December of 98 I joined. In February of 1999, February 15th of 99, there was a big church fire over in Lake Worth, and there was a bunch of different departments that responded to it. And my Sunday school teacher and 2 other men, they died in that fire. The roof collapsed on them, and they passed away, which really, man, it crushed me. I was like, man, this guy I looked up to, I idolized him. He was kind of my mentor. I wanted to be like him. I wanted to be the godly man that he was and be the fireman that he was, and then he passes away. And I didn't deal with that. In September of 99, there was one of my best friend's dads who I was really close with. He perished he died in a car accident, and I didn't deal with that. And then July of 2001, I think it was, my grandmother, who we were really, she lived just the next town over. We were super close. She died, and then I didn't deal with that. And so because I didn't deal with those things, I kind of started going down a path that I didn't need to be on. I was drinking. I was going to the bar all the time. I started dabbling in drugs. I was just going down a horrible path. I distanced myself from my parents, but thank God for a praying mama. Amen. My dad and I didn't have a really good relationship, but we started to kind of mend our fences and stuff, and he sat me down one day, and we went to his office. They used to live north of Weatherford in a log cabin, and he had this office, and he sat me down in there, and the first thing he told me was, "You are going to be okay." I was on a path of destruction for my life, and he sat me down and told me, "You are going to be okay." And we went through this whole process of mapping out my life, of what I wanted out of life, from what I wanted in a wife, what I wanted for a job, what I wanted for, everything. I mean, just from the little stuff to the big stuff. And we sat down and we mapped that all out. And that moment in my life was a turning point that set me on a path to where I am today. And I want to give a little honor for that. My mom and dad are sitting right down here, right behind CR. I want to give a little honor for that, because if it wasn't for my parents, I wouldn't be standing here today. I wouldn't be leading these youth. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Good, I got through that without crying. I didn't know if I would. But one thing I learned through that is our life defines us. We are a product of our environment. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, you're not a product of your environment. Just, it's not your fault that these bad things happen to you. It's not your fault because you're doing these things." No, I say that's wrong. I say we're a product of our environment. It's not about the bad things that happen to us. It's what are we going to do with it? I know a lot of people, they've had some really crappy things happen to them. Stuff out of their control, stuff because of decisions that they've made, and they get stuck in that. They get stuck in, well, these bad things happened to me. My wife left me, and, I lost my job, and they get stuck there, and they spend the rest of their lives stuck. They spend the rest of their lives stuck in that woe is me place, and they play this blame game. Well, I blame God because this happened to me. This horrible thing that happened to me. I blame, the devil that this happened to me. I blame myself. I made these decisions. I blame myself because this happened to me. And they get stuck in that blame game. But we can either stay in that spot, or we can use the bad things that happened to us to propel us into a new life. David did that. David was on the run, okay? Everybody knows the story of David. He was one of the best warriors. He started from a small child, 13 years old, killing Goliath. Well, David was on the run from King Saul, and he went into the temple, and he's like, I need a sword. These people are after me. I don't have any weapons. I need a sword. And the priest said, "Hey, over there is Goliath's sword." So David went over there, and he took Goliath's sword, and he went out, and he became one of the best warriors that there ever was in the Bible. He took something that the devil meant to destroy him, and he used that to defeat his enemies and give God all the glory. Okay? That's what we need to do. We need to take what the devil's trying to do to destroy us and what the devil's using to defeat us, and we need to take that and use it to propel us to the next level. Amen? All right, today, that was my little... Today I want to talk, I'm going to be preaching out of the book of Esther. Does everybody know the story of Esther? If you don't know the story of Esther, it is one of the coolest stories in the Bible. Let me just give you a little backstory on Esther, and then we'll start in chapter 4. King Xerxes was at the beginning of the book of Esther. King Xerxes is having this 180-day party. And when a king throws a party, it is awesome. He throws a ton of money at it, and they do all this crazy stuff, and it is awesome. 180 days. Okay, well, one day during that 180 days, King Xerxes gets a little drunk, and he's feeling good, and he's got this beautiful wife that he wants to show off. So he calls to his wife, "Wife, get over here. Come display your beauty for all of the people to see, and put on your crown and come show your beauty for everybody to see." And his wife says, "No, I'm not going to do that." She says, I'm not going to do that." And he's like, so he goes to his counsel, and he's like, my wife just disobeyed me. What do I do? And his counsel says, well, fire her. She's done. Because if it gets out that the king's wife is, the queen is disobeying her husband, everybody in the land is going to, all the women in the land are going to start disobeying their husband. And it's going to be anarchy. Something to that there. So King Xerxes starts this search, okay? And he's talking about it. And Mordecai is this Jewish man, and he was eavesdropping on the conversation. I like Mordecai because he's an eavesdropper. I'm an eavesdropper. It drives my wife insane. We'll go to a restaurant, and we'll be sitting there, and I hear people talking over there, and I'm like, did you just hear that? She's like, no, what are you talking about? These people are talking about this, and that's crazy, Or I like going to the coffee shops where a lot of the old men hang out, like CR, and I like to just sit there and listen. You can learn a lot from that, but you can learn a lot of stuff you don't need to know from that too. So Mordecai was eavesdropping on this conversation. He's like, you know what? I've got a cousin that is beautiful, that would be a great fit for this to be this queen. And so he calls up Esther, and he's like, Esther, you need to put in for this. Basically, make a long story short, Esther becomes the queen, and then Mordecai's eavesdropping again, and King Xerxes puts out this decree that he's going to kill all the Jews on this certain day of the certain month. And Mordecai's like, oh, I got to do something about this. So he goes to his queen, and that's kind of where we're at here in chapter 4. I'm going to read all of chapter 4, so I won't make you guys stand up, but you guys can follow along where we're at. In Esther chapter 4. I'll be reading out of I know Roger likes to use the New International Version. I like the New Living Testament, and so I'm going to be talking out of that today. When Mordecai learned about all that had been done, he tore his clothes, put on burlap and ashes, and went out into the city crying with a loud and bitter wail. He went as far as the gate of the palace, for no one was allowed to enter the palace gate while wearing clothes of mourning. And as news of the king's decree reached all the provinces, there was great mourning among the Jews. They fasted, wept, and wailed, and many people lay in burlap and ashes. When Queen Esther's maids and eunuchs came and told her about Mordecai, she was deeply distressed. She sent clothing to him to replace the burlap, but he refused it. Then Esther sent for Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, who had been appointed as her attendant. She ordered him to go to Mordecai and find out what was troubling him and why he was in mourning. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the square in front of the palace gate. Mordecai told him the whole story, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. Mordecai gave Hathach a copy of the decree issued in Susa that called for the death of all Jews. He asked Hathach to go to show it to Esther and explain the situation to her. He also asked Hathach to direct her to go to the king to beg for mercy and plead for her people. So Hathach returned to Esther with Mordecai's message. You guys pay attention to this next little part. Then Esther told Hathach to go back and relay this message to Mordecai. All the king's officials and even the people in the provinces know that anyone who appears before the king in his inner court without being invited is doomed to die unless the king holds out his gold scepter. And the king has not called for me to come to him for 30 days. So Hathach gave Esther's message to Mordecai. Okay. Mordecai sent his reply to Esther. Don't think for a moment that because you're in the palace, you will escape when all the other Jews are killed. If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives will die. Mordecai's telling her, if you don't rise up and tell the king, somebody else will do it. God will raise somebody else. He's going to save his people. But you and your whole family will die. And he finishes it with this. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for such a time as this? He tells her, Esther, you need to do this. If you don't, that's okay. You and your whole family will perish. But God will raise up somebody else to do what you should do. He's basically telling her, Esther, you've been put in this position to do this job right here. This is why you're here. This is why you're on this planet. Then Esther sent his reply to Mordecai, go and gather together all the Jews of Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will do the same. And then, though it is against the law, I will go in to see the king. If I must die, I must die. So Mordecai went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him. Okay, here's the steps for your overnight success. You have to determine who to let influence you. Okay? Esther's in this room. She's going into this room where the culture of the entire country is made. Anything that they talk about and do in this room, that is the culture. Okay? That's like the ultimate Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everything all rolled into one, telling people what they should be doing. Because, okay, so let's be real honest today. Facebook kind of dictates a lot of the things that go on. Things that happen on Facebook. There's a deal that we're doing in the youth right now, which I'm fixing to implement. The floor is lava. 5, 4, 3, 2. You're all going to burn. 1. They got it. Okay, so let me explain what I just did. On Facebook, there's this video of these people, and they're in like Walmart or at church or whatever, and one person will look at a group of people and they'll go, the floor is lava, and they'll just start counting down. And all the people around that hear it and know the game, they got to get up out of the chairs and make sure they're not touching the floor, because if they're in lava, it's going to burn. Okay, that's just something silly that people do. And there's this church over in Weatherford that the youth pastor got into it, and one of his youth, they were walking through Walmart, and they looked over at the youth pastor, they said, the floor is lava, and they started counting down. And he's trying to find somewhere to go to get, and he ends up jumping in this ball pit of a bunch of balls that they're selling at Walmart. Anyway, it was funny. But you guys will have to humor me with that one. But it's kind of like all the, if you share this, you know, Jesus is going to provide for you, blah, blah, blah. That's not how Jesus works. But there's so many people that do things just because they see them on Facebook. Okay? There's people that see one news article on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and they see one news article, they think that it's the God's honest truth, that's what it is. And that's defining a culture. Okay? These spinners, any of my kids have a spinner with them? I don't have mine on me. Okay, have y'all seen these fidget spinners? I can guarantee you that these fidget spinners would not be as popular as they are, and they would not be making as much money as they are if it wasn't for Facebook. Everybody's talking about them, good and bad. You know, there's been news articles. Everybody, and it's all that clickbait just to get you to click on this article. And they click on this article saying, oh, all these fidget spinners are bad. Everybody get rid of your fidget spinners. And then there's the news article, oh, these fidget spinners, they help kids with ADD and all this stuff. It's all defined by Facebook, and I hate it. Have we become that simple that the way we think is defined by a website? Anyway, that's another story. But that's kind of like what Esther was walking into. She's walking into where they make the culture. Anything that they say in this room, that's what everybody in the land is going to be doing. And she's going in there to talk to the king. A lot of times, we're talking about you have to determine who you let influence you. A lot of times, people will be so dead set against, I'm never going to do this. So we'll say, I'm never going to get divorced. They'll say for years before they get married and after they're married, I'm never going to get divorced. I'm never going to get divorced. I'm never going to get divorced. And then you see them, 5, 10 years later, and they're divorced. They had such a strong conviction about, I'm never going to get divorced. I'm never going to get divorced. But then 5, 10 years down the road, they're divorced. What do you think happened? They let the wrong people influence them. They let the wrong people speak into their lives. Just like when I was going down that path and I was doing all these wrong things. I knew they were wrong. I knew I shouldn't be doing them. But I let the wrong people speak into my life. I let the wrong people influence what I was doing. And it wasn't until I let the right person speak to my heart that my life changed. So you need to guard your heart when it comes to the issue of people influencing your life. You need to have your heart open, wide open to the right people, and your heart closed off to the wrong people. And God will let you know who those right people are and who those wrong people are. I can guarantee you that. So, you have to let the right people influence you. Esther let Mordecai influence her. He even had to convince her. He told her, you need to do this. You need to go into the king's court and tell him that this is not right. This is not what needs to be done. And at first she resisted. But then she opened her heart wide open and said, okay, Mordecai, I believe what you're telling me is from God, and this is what I'm going to do. He was able to influence her. Conviction is the birthplace of confidence. Once you have a deep, in your soul, believe it with all of your heart conviction, you will have the confidence that you're looking for. I want to talk, anybody ever seen the movies Rocky? Rocky's one of my favorite series, the right half of the room has. Rocky's one of my favorite movie series of all time. I love it. Sylvester Stallone, I don't know, I'm going to give you all a little backstory on Rocky. Sylvester Stallone wrote the movie Rocky, okay? And when he wrote this movie, he started going to these movie producers and saying, all right, here's my script, but I want to be the one that plays Rocky. And they were turning him down left and right. Dude had $106 in his pocket. That's all the money he had. He had to sell his dog because he couldn't afford to feed it. I mean, this dude was flat broke. And then somebody came to him and said, hey, we will pay you $300,000 to make this movie, but you don't get to play Rocky. He said, no, I ain't going to do it. Now, you tell me that's not some conviction. He believed in his soul. He was the one to play Rocky. He was convinced. He had that conviction. He had that confidence to turn down. When he had $106 in his pocket and he just sold his dog, he had an offer of $300,000 on the table and he turned it down. I don't know that I could do that. $300,000 is a lot of money. And if you look at it, that was back in the late 70s, and $300,000 was a lot of money back then. And he had the conviction and knew in his heart that he was destined to play that role. So finally somebody came to him and said, all right, let's make this movie. They spent $1 million on the budget. And I don't know if you guys know anything about the movie industry. $1 million is like nothing to make a movie. They did it in 28 days. The first year that movie ran, it made $100 million. Now, if he would have sold that movie for $300,000, that's all he'd have had in his pocket, is $300,000. But because he had the conviction and knew in his heart and soul that he was the one destined to make that movie, he's now worth over $400 million. Sylvester Stallone's worth over $400 million. And it's because he had the intestinal fortitude to stand up and say, this is what I'm destined to do. Mordecai gave Esther that conviction. Mordecai told her, if you don't do this, somebody else is, but if you don't do this, everyone's going to die. Even everybody in your family is going to die. He gave her that conviction. And let me tell you something. If she went in there, like it was saying in here, if she went into the king's court, she could die right there. They had every right, because of the law, to kill her if she went into that king's court without being invited. But she had some conviction. We need to have that conviction about something. We need to stand up and say, this is my purpose. This is what I'm going to do. And not look back. We need to look at our walk with God with that. Saying, this is my purpose. My purpose is to walk with God. and not look back. Have that 100% sold out conviction of that's what we're supposed to do. Next part, build a fortress around your focus. As I was preparing this week, God kind of brought to my attention that I'm a third-generation Christian. Okay? I'm a third-generation Christian. My nanny, my dad's mom, was saved back in the 40s. And then my dad followed that suit, and then now I'm here. And you know, a lot of people would look at that and say, oh, your family, y'all are just Christians. Y'all, you know, you just were born into it. But I want to tell y'all something that is pretty awesome. My nanny changed the course for her generation, my dad's generation, my generation, my kids' generation, my grandkids' generation, my great-grandkids' generation. She started all that. She made the tough decision to follow God that changed generations. Some people in this room may be sitting here saying, well, my family was kind of, we didn't grow up in church, and we didn't, my mom and dad didn't follow God. My grandparents never went to church. They never followed God. But you have the choice, just like my nanny did back in the 40s, to change generations, to make a tough decision now to say, I'm going to have the conviction to follow this Bible and change generations. Don't think about it, what's going on now. Think about 6 generations from now when you're up in heaven with God, and He's pointing down at your family and saying, you did that. Because of a tough decision you made back in 2017, you did that. You were getting thousands of people saved because of a tough decision you made in 2017. It's not easy. It's not easy to make a decision to be 100. And I'm not just talking about, okay, I've prayed the prayer, I'm going to heaven, I'm good. I'm talking about being 100% sold out to God. Your conviction is, I'm going to live this way. I'm not going to stray. I'm going to let the right people influence my life. I'm going to let God have control. That's the decision I made. It's easy to make a decision to say a prayer and say, okay, I'm going to heaven. I'm good to go. But it is tough to make the decision that I'm going to be a follower of Christ. I'm not just going to go to church on Sunday and live how I want the rest of the week. I'm going to follow Christ. When people see me, they're going to know that guy is Christ-like. That's a tough decision. It's not easy. It is hard. I fail at it every day. But I know it's my blood right to follow Christ because of a tough decision that was made back in the 40s. Self-control is not the ability to say no to a million things. That's not self-control. Being able to say no, that's not self-control. Self-control is the ability to say yes to one thing. You can say no to stuff all day long. That's easy. Somebody comes up and offers me some drugs. Nope, I'm good. Nope. I'm going to go to a buffet. I can have the self-control, say, nope, I'm not going to go back for force. That's easy. I tell that story because last night me and my family and my dad and mom and my grandpa and a bunch of us went to Furs over and forth. Who's been to Furs? Man, I love that place. They're square fish. I don't know what fish that is that comes out square like that, but it's awesome. My dad, when we got done, he's sitting back, oh, I hate this place. I eat too much. It's not their fault. They'll hate that place. It's that self-control, saying, no, I'm not going to go back for force. Or you say, yes, I'm going to stop at thirds. But y'all can tell we like to eat. But you've got to build that focus around your fortress. That's exactly after Esther decided that she was going to do what Mordecai has influenced her to do. She told them, you go to all the other Jews and y'all fast and y'all pray. Let's build a focus around this. I'm going to go do the same with me and my maidens. I'm going to build a focus around this. I'm not going to let anything else influence this because this is important. Okay? Serving, I'm going to step on some toes here in a minute. Is that all right? Can I step on some toes? All right. Serving in this church is important because it's part of that changing the course of somebody's life. You don't know that you're not the person that influences somebody to change, they make that radical life change that will change generations. You don't know that. You could just be a door greeter. Man, our door greeters are awesome. You get through and I know people say that all the time, but it's coming from other churches, they don't have door greeters like we do. You're not getting mauled by Bobby Clary as you're coming in the door. Maybe there's something to that. Our concession stand, Don Corbin right back there. When we have events out here, that man is faithful. His faithfulness could be changing somebody's life right now. Our nursery workers. Every week, now I asked Natalie, I said, are you in nursery today? Yeah, probably. Because, A, she knows it's important. Even though all she may be in there doing is holding babies. But you don't know that those parents, they may be the only other person who gets to hold them babies. They may be with them 100% of the time, and the only relief they get is when they come to Palo County Cowboy Church, and they come and they bring their kids and leave them in the nursery because they know that they're loved there. That's changing generations. That's changing the course of somebody's life. It's not just about working down in the arena. It's not just about cooking breakfast on Saturday mornings for men's breakfast. It's not just about working with the youth. It's not just about working in the kids' church. That's changing generations. That's changing people's lives forever and their kids' lives and their grandkids' lives. And if you don't volunteer in this church, I don't know how else to say this, get involved. Because not only are you going to be changing people's lives, your life will be changed because of it. I want to say something to the men real quick. I'm going to get on you in a minute. If you're a man and you serve in our Kids Corral program, raise your hand. Ouch. Men, those little boys over there and those little girls over there, they need to see godly men serving in our Kids Corral program. They may be the only godly man that you will ever see, that they will ever see. We don't know what their home life's like. We know a lot of those kids. Our kids are in the Kids Corral program. There's a lot of you guys as kids who are faithful and come here all the time and raise your kids right. But there may be kids in there that you may be the only godly man that they ever see. That's changing generations. When the men will rise up and work in our Kids Corral program and show these kids unconditional love, the God kind of love, the love straight from the Father, you're going to change those kids' lives. And let me give you a little hint. It'll bless you. It'll bless your life. It's one Sunday a month. All right, I'm off my high horse there. I'll get off my soapbox. All right, I told y'all at the beginning of this that I have a secret to overnight success. Okay? Y'all watched the video of Zane Williams singing about overnight success. He's actually a buddy of mine, and I talked to him earlier this week, and I said, hey, I'm going to use one of your videos in my sermon this Sunday. And he's like, you are? What video are you using? And I told him, he's like, man, that's pretty cool. He's a good dude. Anyways, so here's the secret for overnight success. It ain't true. You go to any millionaire, billionaire, whatever, any person that you see successful, and it looks like they just rose up overnight and boom, they had all this money and they had all this stuff, and they had all these businesses, able to do that. You go to them, it looks like they rose up overnight. You go to them and ask them, how'd you do this? You would just wake up on the right side of the bed one day? Did you just, decide, okay, I'm going to invest in this one thing, and boom, it worked? They said, I can guarantee you every single one of them will say no. My success started 20 years ago when I started having a good work ethic and being faithful to something and decided I'm going to be successful. You can ask the pastor of this church. We've got probably the largest church in Palo County. If we ain't the largest, we're close to it. And it seems like somebody coming in from the outside that it just rose up overnight. The people who have been here long enough, because that's what it seemed like to me. Whenever I came out here, I was like, I've never heard of this church. And boom, it's here. It's Palo County, and there's, 600 members. How does that happen? How do they raise that up overnight? They don't. They started, I don't even want to say, how old is this church? 9 years? 9 years old? It didn't start then. It started 10 years before that when God started dropping something in Roger's heart about this county. It started 10 years ago when Roger was being faithful where he was. It started 10 years ago when it started, I don't know how old Roger is. I'd say it started 50 years ago when Fake Heck started praying for Roger. Generational changes, guys. Generational changes. David understood that his success was not overnight. Okay, coming in from the outside, looking and reading the story of David, we could do that, but it's kind of long, and I don't want to get into it right now. I can just give you all a synopsis of it. It seems like David rose up from nothing real quick. All he was doing, he was going out to feed his brothers at the battlefield, and boom, he killed Goliath. It's not where it started. It started when he was working out in the fields and building instruments, praising God. He would have a tune in his head, and he'd start, well, if I build this instrument this way with this wood and this material, I can make it sound like this. It started when he was out protecting his sheep in the field, and he figured out, well, if I take this rope and this rock and I can throw it this way, I can do some damage with that. He killed a bear and a lion before he even met Goliath with his slingshot. It started when he got it in his heart that he was going to be a warrior. David's dad sent him that day to the field of battle. He gave some bread and some cheese to take to his brothers, and he's like, all right, I got enough that I can eat this much before I get there and give this much to my brothers. All right, it's going to be a good day. Go out and see a battle. It's going to be awesome. So he left the house, and he goes out there. And he didn't wake up that morning going, I smell Goliath. It's going to be a good day. I'm going to go kill me a giant. That's not the way his day started off. His day started off probably doing a little work in the fields, and then his daddy told him to go feed his brothers. And he's like, I can do that. I can take him some bread and some cheese and go out to the field and watch some people get their heads knocked off. It's going to be cool. It's like going to, nowadays I kind of equate it to, I'm going to go out and watch some WWE and watch these guys do some suplexes, and he was excited. He was going to watch a battle. And he gets out there and he sees this big old giant making fun of his God. And it just didn't sit right with him because of his conviction. And he's like, no, this dude ain't going to make fun of my God. Nobody else would fight him, so he's like, guess it's up to me. He stepped into greatness. But it started 5-6 years before that when he's out learning to work a craft, learning to build stuff with his hands. That's when it started. Don't practice when the game is being played. Anybody in here like to play golf? I know we were supposed to have a golf tournament or golf game a couple weeks ago. I love playing golf. I'm really bad at it, but I love playing golf. I had a guy tell me, I played in high school, and I had a guy tell me, don't practice when you're out on the course. That's not the time to practice. Your practice comes in on the driving range and on the greens next to the clubhouse when you can stand out there with about 18 balls and put that one in. Okay, that one didn't do right. Let's try this another way. Work on your grip. watch some YouTube videos on what you're doing wrong with your swing. That's where the practice comes in. It doesn't come in on 18 holes. When you're on that 18 holes, it's time to play. It's time to do everything you've just practiced for, 2 hours before. It's time to put that all into work. But we look at our Christian walk, we're playing the game we're practicing during the game. The only time that we ever feel like we know God is through our pain and the chaos in our lives. That's the only time we ever feel like we really need God. But do you know God outside of that? Do you know God when things are going good? Are you seeking Him when things are going good? Or do you just seek Him and when things are bad, that's the only time you ever pray to Him? That's the only time you ever, oh God, I need help with this. When we start seeking Him outside of our pain and our pain and our chaos will subside. I'm not going to say it's going to go all the way away, but it's going to go way back. When we start seeking God when things are good, we'll be ready when things are bad. It won't be a chaotic thing. We'll be ready. All right, bring it on. We'll be ready. You've got to train your instincts. I'm going to close with this. You've got to train your instincts. You've got to get in this book every day. That's how you practice. You get in the book and you decide, all right, God, you say this about this. This is how I'm going to live my life. I'm going to have that conviction about this situation. You say, God, I'm not going to let people outside of people who are good for me and who you have placed in my life influence me. I'm going to open my heart 100% to the right people that will influence me. Whoever that is, I'm going to open myself. But I'm going to shut myself off to the people who are bad and not listen to them. They may sound good, but they may have some ideas that may work, but God, it's not from you. I'm going to build a fortress around my focus. Once I figure out what I'm here for, I'm going to build a fortress around that and not let anybody change that. I'm going to cover it in prayer. I'm going to cover my life in prayer. This morning we asked how many visitors were here, and I think maybe one person may have raised their hand. So that tells me that most everybody here is home folk. But I don't ever want to talk to any group of people without giving them an opportunity. You may have heard everything I said and be like, man, that's me. I don't know why I'm here, and I don't know how to get to know why I'm here. He's up there talking about God, but I don't know God. This is how you get to know God. You can pray the prayer and ask God forgiveness, but that's just where it starts. That's working out in the field like David building instruments. That's practicing before a golf game. That's the beginning of practice, the first time you pick up a golf club. But to really know God, you get into His Word, and you seek Him out, and you let the right people influence you. You seek out God's Word. You pray. You fast. That's how you become a success. So, let's pray. Father, I thank you for this opportunity, Father. I thank you for the Word that you've given me today. Father, I don't ever want to leave a service and not give somebody the opportunity to know you. You may be here right now and you don't know God. You don't know what I'm talking about. So I want to give you the opportunity because right now, it's easy. The first step is easy. All you have to do is pray this prayer and say, Father, I thank you for dying for my sins. I thank you for sending your Son. I thank you for that. Father, I want you. I want you in my life. I want to know you. Father, thank you for that. Father, I pray with this awesome group of people that you put your hand on them and you comfort them when they need it. You teach them more of you. You put the right people in their lives to influence them. You teach them how to pray and fast and seek your word. Father, I thank you for that. Father, I pray that everybody has a great week. And I just thank you for your love and your grace and your mercy. In your name I pray. Amen.